This week on Take Your Mountain.
Entrepreneurship, if it's something that's in your heart and you feel like it's hardwired in you and you're in a job today, like you don't have to quit. Like maybe you do if everything lines up, but maybe it's in 5 years, maybe it's in 10 years, maybe it's in 15 years. But the time can still come, and hopefully it's as obvious for you as it was for me.
Be strong and courageous.
Anywhere you see a gap between what you think might be possible and what is, that's an opportunity for an entrepreneur to dive in.
There are ways to succeed. There are models in entrepreneurship investing. There are people who have found a path before.
To dream about like what are the talents that you have and what are the things that make you come alive.
That there's actually a generation of warrior entrepreneurs, people that are willing to stand up, to do the hard work, to start a thing, to see a thing through.
Here's our mission, and we're going to take a step forward, just one foot in front of the other, and we're going to build something great.
We can make a difference. Let's do this in our lifetime. Let's see how much positive change we can drive. All right, everyone. Thank you and welcome to another episode of Take Your Mountain podcast. I'm your host, Jason Weimer, and today I have the pleasure of having with me Bob Barlau, my partner at Gratus Capital. And today we're just going to be diving in, get to know each other better with the audience, actually. I
hope you know me by now.
Hopefully we know each other.
For all these years.
For the audience's benefit.
Deeply hurt.
So yeah, with that, we'll just kind of dive in here. So could you tell your entire life story from the moment, just maybe share a little bit of your background, where you came from and how you ended up at Gratūs Capital.
Yeah, awesome. Well, my background, I've got some nice frosted glass with some clear glass above. Sorry, that was a lame joke. For those of you only listening to the audio and not the video, you would get that.
We didn't mention your title, which is CFO.
Oh yeah, Chief Fund Officer.
Chief Fund Officer. That's a key part of your role here.
Right, and to fast forward in the story, essentially that's how I ended up at Gratus, is like I bring the fun to the party. Background, let's see. There's a lot to go into. I was born in Minnesota. Grew up in a small town called New Ulm, Minnesota, a little German town. And in the third grade, we moved up to the Twin Cities because my dad got a job up in the cities. So we moved up to Farmington, Minnesota. And had a pretty simple, normal middle-class life, I would say. I had an older sister, my mom and dad. Everything was great, played sports, all was good. Significant life events around the age, I think it was 15, my parents got divorced. And so that was a pretty big, changed my world at the time. And I really, at that point, somewhat became, I just became very independent because I was living in between two places and became very independent and I did a lot of great stuff. I had some jobs and stayed pretty active, but also got into a little bit of trouble along the way. And then ended up going to college. I went to the University of Minnesota for 1 year, and around the end of the first year of college, I really had some significant changes in my life. Like a lot of the old lifestyle and the partying and all that stuff just wasn't very attractive anymore. I had a yearning to do something bigger and more significant, and so that's really when faith became a big part of my life and my story, and also entrepreneurship really kicked into high gear. It was probably around when I was 18 or 19. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which really just blew my mind and got me excited about the opportunities in business and investing. So I read that book, and then that paired with, some of the best advice I ever got in my life was from my buddy Skip, who's now one of our partners, was to read one chapter of Proverbs every day. There's 31 chapters, it's 31 days in a month normally, and they're only about a page long. So Skip was like, hey, I think you can make it through a page each day, which turned out to be probably the best advice I'd ever received. So around that time, 19, faith got activated, started to pursue wisdom, was looking at college. I really wasn't there for the right reasons. I did what it took to get good grades, but I wasn't really excited about it. I wasn't learning. And so I remember going to my college counselor and saying, hey, I want to go pursue a business. I've got some other ideas and opportunities. And she was like, yeah, go for it. Take a leave of absence. You can always come back. And I was kind of shocked. Like, what? I can go? You just said that's okay? And so I was like, peace out. Technically, I think I'm still on a leave of absence. So, maybe I'll go back one day and see what I can do. But yeah, I left college after 1 year, and then, really depending on how much detail you want to go into now, had a crazy journey over the next 18 years.
Yes. Tell me, when you left, you probably had some semblance of a plan. Like, what gave you the confidence to leave college? Did you have something to jump right into, or was it still open-ended at that point?
Yeah, the biggest thing was, I would say, network marketing. I was well on my way to becoming a multimillionaire, having a couple Bentleys, a dream house, a beautiful wife. That was the plan, because I had been in a few different multi-level marketing companies from like age 18 to 21, and like that was it. Like I was dead set on here's how I'm going to make it. What
percentage of the way were you there to that vision? Like 0.25 or 0.75?
Maybe maybe 0.3. I had some work to do. I had some momentum. I had built up a downline of, 50 or 60 people. Like I had some stuff going on. I made a little bit of money, but I was on my way. And so, although network marketing isn't where I ultimately became successful in business, like the principles that I learned there, the inspiration I received there, the mentoring and coaching, really, like that was my college. Like I learned so much good information from just being around people who were like just going after goals and doing something significant and doing something great. And that wasn't necessarily the vehicle that brought me to great places, but it was the mindset and the coaching that I needed to then, get into some other opportunities.
Cool. So as you progressed into that first stage of entrepreneurship, maybe share a little bit about some of the strategies, what maybe worked, what didn't work, some of the early on experiences.
Yeah, so outside of network marketing, the first business that I really had or was a part of, I sold a couple hats one time. I don't think we can really count that.
eBay.
But I joined up, one of my buddies had a window cleaning business, and he literally, like his mom was a realtor, and he just ended up stacking up a bunch of window cleaning clients throughout high school. And we became great friends through network marketing. Imagine that. And we were, as I just spent more time with them, we're like, hey, you have this like window cleaning is pretty cool. You get to like hang out at really nice houses. You get to meet cool people. Like it's pretty easy work. It's kind of fun to do with a squeegee. Anyone that you ever watch someone clean windows, it's fascinating. It's a lot tougher than it looks. And so then as I started like talking with him more, it's like, hey, how do you keep track of all your people? He's like, oh, they're just in my phone. I'm like, well, you normally like shatter your phone like every 3 months. So how does that work out?
It's before the cloud. They were physically.
Yeah, it was before the cloud. So I guess that dates me a little bit. And he might have had a spreadsheet somewhere too, but like also he had an awesome thing going, but I was like, hey, it was myself, and then Skip too was also involved in the window cleaning business. We were, I think Judge was 6'7", Skip was 6'5", and I was 6'4". So, we didn't even need ladders to do these jobs. It was great. But Skip and I, partnered up with him at the time. We're like, let's build an awesome window cleaning business. Cause we looked at the window cleaning like our competition was like Luigi and a squeegee or Bucket Bob. Like it was this, guy showing up in like a rusty van with like a dirty t-shirt, ripped jeans. And we're like, hey, if you live in $1 million house on a golf course and have like young kids, do you want this guy walking through your kid's bedroom and through your closet and all this stuff? Like, people are doing it, but like, what if we got nice polo shirts and, got a good haircut and just started going and knocking on doors and smiling and looking people in the eye and saying, we'd love to earn your business. And so it was really cool because we took like, I guess the South Metro by storm. Like there was one golf course down in the South Metro where like, we want every house on this course just because we wanted to watch people play golf while we worked. So we ended up racking up a ton of clients and building a really cool business. And it was a lot of fun to go through that process and to see an opportunity, like a need that wasn't being met or a need that could be met better. and going after it and making it happen.
Cool. You talked a little bit about faith earlier, and I know you came up with kind of a unique statement. Can you share a little bit of like when that came about, or what was the process for integrating a little bit of your faith in your business plan?
Sure. Well, I guess backtracking a little bit, like I grew up in like around faith, like went to a Lutheran church growing up, and I mostly went because if I was good and listened, I would get a donut. So that was my main motivation. But I would like sit through the service and pray the prayers, and like I believed, I believe God, like it seems to make sense. But I really there was no practical application in my life. I didn't realize that it was like a living experience. I thought, it was just like a ritual or a ceremony to me. And so then through my like rebellious teenage years, like I, made some poor choices, this and that. But when I started reading Proverbs and I, had went to a church that like I went to a sermon, and the sermon like just hit me between the eyes. I was like, wow, this applies to my life. Like what he's talking about, like that's like real. This is happening today. This is really cool information. So I just became intrigued by, the living Word of God, for example, and So it was after that service, that's when Skip told me to read the Proverbs, every day. And that day, I went back to my dorm room and I had 5 really tough decisions to make. Should I buy this condo? Should I drop out of college? Should I break up with my girlfriend? Should I pursue this business and start this job? I think those were the 5. And I had no direction. I didn't know what to do, but I flipped open Proverbs, and it was, I got to Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. And at that moment, it was just like a download. Like I actually just broke out into laughter. So I'm alone in my dorm room, laughing hysterically for like 5 minutes. And I just can't stop laughing because I was just like, I know what to do. I have clarity. I know what to do. Like, all right, God, I'm going to pursue you. You've got my life. And then from that moment forward, it was a lot of refining along the way. I remember golfing with Skip like a couple months later, and I like hit a ball into the, other fairway as usual. And I'm just like, expletive. And he's like, hey man, like you're better than that. Like you got to clean it up. I'm like, well, what the expletive do you mean? And, like he just started to like mentor me and be like, there's a different way to live. And it's not about being religious or following rules, but it's about like just living at a higher standard and being a representation of like purity and truth and character. And so I just continued to refine my character, and still am today. I've still got plenty to work on. And then when it came to as I just continued to go through this journey, like really realizing that like everything I was doing, like it's not about me, it's not about Bob and what can I do or how good can I look or how much can I accumulate, but it was about living for God, living for something bigger than me. Of like I'm super blessed to have the opportunities that I have. I'm super blessed to have my health. I'm super blessed to have my friends and family. Like even though my parents are divorced, like it's a big bummer, but I'm blessed that they're still around, and I'm blessed that they still get along, and I'm blessed that they love me and that my kids get to meet them. And so really in my life, like everything was like, because of my relationship with God, like so much good stuff flowed from there. And then as I eventually progressed it was around 2010, I joined an internship at our church to kind of figure out like, hey, is business or ministry like where I want to go? And we can dive more into that later. But at some point, I don't remember the exact date, but came up really with the mission statement for my life. And that was, number 1 is to build the kingdom and share the love of Jesus. Like with my life, with my time here on this earth, the most important thing I can do is share the love of Christ to people and do my part to build the kingdom of God. Number 2 is to build a family with generational blessings. I had heard of like, oh, there's generational curses, or there's this country song like, come from a long line of sinners like me. It's a pretty good song, but I'm like, I don't want that to be my family. Like, why not create generational blessings? And to me, like, you might immediately think of like, oh, that's money. sure, it's money because you need money to do things, but it's like, how about generational health? How about generational marriages? How about generational relationships and friendships? Like there's so many like generational values and generational, this creating a lifestyle and creating a family that is generational blessings that my wife and I can work on, like because we're aligned with God, and then, do everything we can to pass that on to our children. And then the third step was to build businesses and invest in real estate. And because like that's what was fun for me. I was passionate about business and real estate and being an entrepreneur. And really, I looked at step 3 was really I did those things so I could do number 2 and number 1 more easily. I'm like, hey, if I have businesses and real estate that can provide me resources, I can volunteer full time. I can be there for my kids' sports games, maybe even be a coach. Like so that's really the philosophy that I put. That's my life goals. And now every decision I made since I came up with that has really went through that filter. Will this help me build the kingdom? Will it help me build my family? And is it doing what I'm passionate about? Then I'm going to do it. And if it doesn't fit one of those things, it's like, well, probably not. Maybe I'll come back to it later and it will line up better at that time.
That's so cool. I know so many people come at different stages of the purpose journey, like from completely having no idea what they're doing, why they're doing it, a curiosity to a pretty formal plans and things like that. For you in that process, how you came up with some really like clear and simple bullet points. Do you remember like the process, how you came to that? Was it over a period of time and then all of a sudden one day you just like wrote it down, or did you press in during a period of time, or how did that come about?
Yeah, great question. And this is an answer, like it could just be the way that I operate. But for me, since that moment in my dorm room where I just like, all right, God, I'm going to follow you. Excuse me. Like all of the big important decisions in my life, like have come without strain or without trial. Like they've just happened. They just appeared. They showed up. Like I was just walking along and then like, oh, there's an opportunity. This feels right in my spirit. I'm going to do it. They weren't things that I had to like strain for or like, wrestle with. Like it was just, they showed up and they were clear and obvious. Now, with that said, like, sure, I had to work my butt off and I read a lot of books and I took a lot of the actions. But when it came to those moments of truth, like when these 3 things, like one day I just wrote them down. I'm like, yep, that's it. Like there was no like, oh, I'm going to try and wordsmith these or get them perfect. Like literally they just bubbled up out of my spirit. I wrote them down on a page. I'm like, yep, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And that's been the same thing for when I decided to intern at our church, when I eventually took a sales job, when I left that sales job and joined Gratūs, when I met my wife, like all of these things, like there was just a moment when it was super clear to me. I'm like, yes, it's time to go. And for me, I think that's just like alignment in my spirit and having peace about, hey, this is where God wants me. And, there's been other times where there's been we can talk about the story of when you really wanted me to join Gratūs, to leave my job and join Gratūs in like 2016. And you're like, Bob, if you want to be an entrepreneur, this is the time to go. But I didn't have that feeling yet. It was nothing against you, but it was like, hey, I'm not ready yet. And then 4 years later, out of nowhere, it was just like, yep, it's time to go. And then I gave you that crazy phone call and you're like, what? Yeah. Really?
Okay, well, I forgot about that. So for people that may be less familiar with, I don't know, listening or discerning or whatever you want to call it, would you say that your process is a fairly intuitive one where maybe you've made certain prayers and declarations like, hey, I desire the Holy Spirit, I desire wisdom in my life, and I invite that voice to speak into me, and then it just becomes kind of obvious. Is it like an audible word or just kind of a sense of peace that you use to guide yourself and make those bigger decisions?
Sure. I would say it's really just like a sense of peace. I'm not getting like the clouds aren't chattering at me or anything like that. But it's kind of like a decision rubric. Our pastor has shared this decision rubric, which I really think helps. It's like in those big decisions, like what does the Bible say about it? What do like my close friends say about it? So it's like okay, to the Bible, like, is this a good idea? Like, hey, go murder a person. Like, good idea, bad idea? Oh, probably a bad idea. Okay, I can rule that out. And then next step, it's like, okay, what do the people who love me, who know me, who have been in my life, who care about me, what do they say? Like if I go to say, hey, Jason, I was thinking about becoming a professional ping pong player. You would be like, Bob, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said. You haven't beat me in ping pong in 2 years and probably never will. And I'd be like, oh, good. Jason.
I would question how you're going to get paid, but yeah.
Right. So, I like the Bible, talk to close friends and family who love me and who know me. And sometimes they might see blind spots that I don't see and they can help me. And I trust them to speak in my life. And then the third piece is just like the intuition. Like some people call it your gut feeling. Some people call it the Holy Spirit. Some people call it your conscience. Like to me, it's the Holy Spirit is speaking and giving me peace about like, okay, it's morally, it's a, right, wrong. It's a good or indifferent thing. My friends don't think I'm crazy for doing it. They seem to be like, yeah, that makes sense. I can see that. And then internally, there's a sense of peace. And I guess I would call it like there's no checks in my spirit. There have been times where like there's just something inside, and I don't know where it is or where it comes from, but it's like I'm not quite sure. And when I have that, then I just pause. It doesn't mean no. It's just like, all right, I'm just going to be patient and wait because I know that when the time is right, I'm not going to have that, and it's just going to feel natural to, hey, it's time to go. And I think I use this analogy a lot. Like if you look at a tree doesn't really strain to grow. It just does its job. It sits there, the sun shines, it gets some water, photosynthesis happens, and it grows. And it's not straining to be like, oh, one day I got to be a 40-foot oak tree. No, that's what it's going to do. It's on that course. And so I try and think about that. Like, I don't need to strain. Like, sure, I need to put the right ingredients in, like, hard work and character and discipline. But it's going to happen naturally.
That's good. Yeah, that's actually one of the things I learned from that experience was you can put on paper all the logic in the world, and that could be all well and true. But there's also the concept of timing, seasons and timing of things that can make all the sense in the world and probably are like a foregone conclusion to happen at some point, but also waiting for the right timing because there's process, kind of like using the tree analogy, there is a process to things where if you try to sprout leaves before you have a trunk, you're not going to have a very good looking tree or a very healthy tree. So that was something. And then when it became time, I was like, I kind of forgotten where we planted those seeds a long time ago that this was headed. Cool. So when you're talking about your mission statement, I think we're talking about business and ministry. Would it be fair to say for you, these two things are intertwined, like that business is your vehicle in order to do ministry? Or how did you resolve that in your mind as you were in this internship? There's a track where you could become a pastor and go more full-time versus using it more as a leadership track to just develop yourself and be a better leader in life in general? Sure.
It was certainly something that took time and wrestling with. But I think ministry is wherever, like for me, it's wherever I am. And that was part of like doing the internship at my church was awesome because at that point, I was legitimate, like, should I go be a pastor or should I be in business? And it wasn't clear to me at that time. I'm like, well, I'll be in business I had a W-2 sales job at the time. And then I'll do an internship at my church and maybe it will become clear to me. And they were both awesome experiences. Like at church, like at the internship, we had a chance to like there were crazy things that like there were crazy stories and life transformations. And we were part of a really cool, movement, and the church is still growing today. And there's a lot of people, so many people in my life that I know from that experience that their lives have changed for the better and improved. And But also when I looked at my W-2 sales job, like it was an awesome place to work, but it was like it was a very different environment than my church. It was, like, I don't know, think of like a locker room, right? Like it's like happy hours all the time, and like, oh, let's on the way back from golf, let's stop at the strip club. Like this is going to be awesome, and so there was just the worldly lifestyle that, and again, for those people, like, hey, I don't know their stories, I don't know where they're at, but it was like, man, there's a lot of people that are pursuing things that are ultimately going to be empty, and if no one is there to build a relationship with them and get to know them and share with them, like, hey, at some point, I used to pursue a lot of things that were empty, and at some point, like, things changed for me, and now there's much more purpose and meaning in my life and the things I pursue. Like someone's got to be there to do that, and it was really cool because when I was at my W-2 job, I didn't fit in. I felt like a square peg in a round hole, just from a culture standpoint. Like the work, I'm like, I can do the work. I'll learn how to do the work. And when I started there, one of my prayers was like, God, promote me so I can promote you. Because I know at this, like, when I started, I was like, no one's going to listen to me. No one wants to hear if my life advice or life wisdom, because they're all more successful and have accomplished way more than I have. And so I just need to excel and like earn respect so that I can make an impact. And I mean, very early on, like I did go on a missions trip, and I told the office like, hey, I'm going on a missions trip. Like if you pray for me, and did stuff like that. But it was really cool because over time, as I started to have success there and started to, get on the same level as some of these folks, and then, got to share just more of my story, and people got to see more of who I am. And it wasn't necessarily me standing up in the office and preaching, but it was just the way I conducted my business and some of the decisions that I would make, and the I guess sacrifices where I would be willing to give things up and let them go, because I'm like, I know I have a provider who's going to take care of me. And so then people started to get curious, like, wait, why are you okay walking away from that sales territory? I'm like, because there's plenty of opportunity. There'll be more. And then through that, it ended up to, having the opportunity to speak to those people and to invite some to church. And, when they had hard times come up, like, I would be someone they would come talk to. So I really got the opportunity to like minister and pastor in the workplace. And so I see it like, it's just as like wherever you are, you can be the church. The church isn't meant to be inside four walls. Like you can be the church wherever you go. And so now in business, as I continue to do business, like, like with Gratus, like what we're doing, it's not only like, hey, we can do ministry in our daily work, but also how can we create even a work environment that's like more kingdom minded in general, that, hey, yes, church is still important. I'm there every week. I'm going to do everything I can to help build it. But we also need people in business that are out, helping with resources and creating great environments in the marketplace for people.
That's so good. I think you're hitting on a common theme. I think that a lot of people wrestle with anytime you discover faith and decide to take that side of your life more seriously. I think faith, to put it kind of in investing or business terms, is really about thinking about the eternal impact and the eternal reward. And when you apply eternity onto things, it can be either really scary or really empowering, or just kind of sobering to say, hey, we got one life to live. I want to live it as well as I can, and I want to make as many eternal deposits. So I think for a lot of people, immediately they fall into the rut of, okay, that means I got to be full-time missionary, full-time pastor, or full-time this, full-time that. And that definitely is one of many legitimate paths. But I think for anyone that's called into, being a high-level leader or in the business world, I think it's natural to kind of wrestle with that and feel like, I kind of know I'm naturally gifted over here in this business world, but like, I think this is the only way I can contribute. And part of, I think, what you're getting at is like going through that process. I have my own process in this, but realizing, actually just breaking it down even from a financial perspective. Like if we're trying to have impact, if we're trying to to be the most that we're created to be, being broke isn't necessarily beneficial to that. And with the the traditional ministry mindset, it's like, oh, all of a sudden we're in the nonprofit world and we're going around with our hat handed out to everybody trying to raise funds. Where, wait, what if I'm gifted to be able to generate money in the business world, but it's for a higher purpose. It's not money for money's sake. But how much more strategically you can grow yourself if you do have a little bit of resource, and if you're any good, you'll end up with a lot of bit of resource. But it comes back to the mission statement. In your case, build the kingdom, share God's love, build a family with generational blessings. That'd be a fair way to kind of summarize some of that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's good.
Well, that's good. So tell me a little bit. So as you made this transition into being in the business world to be an entrepreneur, maybe share a little bit about that transition, and then how this purpose or mission is played out currently in this project, the stage of life.
Sure. Man, it was tough, but it was simple, the transition. Because I was at my employer Aerotech for 10 years. Like, I loved the company. Like, it was an absolute blast. I learned so much there. I grew there. I was developed there. I made a ton of great friends there, had success in business. And when I left, again, it wasn't like, oh, I'm sick of this place, I got to leave. Like, I don't like where leadership, like, no, I loved, the longer I was there, the more I loved the company, the more I appreciated leadership, the more I understood what the founder was doing and why he did it. But it was just clear to me it was time to go. And I saw, if I had stayed there, I saw a great path ahead. And if I stay, I look ahead to people that were, let's see, I was 35 or something when I left, 36, I don't know. If I look ahead 20 years, it could be a great life. It could be a great career. I could stay here for the rest of my working career. I could probably retire at 55, be in a really great position to, do whatever I want to do. But then I also looked at that time, looking at my friends who were entrepreneurs. They just lived a different life. They had resources, they were building assets, they were building wealth. But then there's just this time component where they owned their time, they owned their schedule. And sure, they still had to work hard and they had different problems, but then also the multiple of they were just doing, it was just different. And so that really attracted me. When I looked at 3 or 4 of my friends who were entrepreneurs, I'm like, I like that lifestyle more. Sure, they're building wealth that also probably at a more rapid pace. It might start a little slower and there's a little more risk involved. But the long-term upside of owning assets, I really enjoyed. And then the lifestyle that went with it, I thought was awesome. And as I transitioned, leaving a large employer to go to startup, mode with Jason and I, working out of an office some days and at home some days during the COVID time. It was, there's pros and cons, right? At a big corporation, it was awesome because all I had to do was go sell. My job was to go invite people to lunch and talk to them about, I tried to talk to them about either faith or hunting or golf or football or their families, and talk to them about that for 50 minutes. Oh yeah, if you need our product, call me up. And that's I didn't have to worry about accounting. I didn't have to worry about legal. I didn't have to worry about compliance. Well, I guess that was terrible. Compliance will never go away from anyone anywhere. But I could just do my job, and I love that. And then coming over to be an entrepreneur where it's oh, cool, I'm going to get this great lifestyle of doing whatever. But then suddenly we're oh, someone needs to do marketing. And I'm oh, well, surely that's not me. Oh, wait, I got to be cool. Someone needs to get our tax stuff together for the accountant. I'm surely that's not me. Oh, wait, yeah, that's okay, I'll do it. Oh, surely someone needs to call the lawyers. And so there was all these little things that I never had to think about. And now oh crap, if I don't do it, if Jason doesn't do it, it's not going to get done. And that's where risk comes in. If you're not, you got to take care of, you got to cross your T's and dot your I's. So that was a little bit of it took some while getting used to just going from like living on easy straight selling to being responsible for everything, or finding someone to be responsible for it, and then having a system in place to run with it. So that was, part of the transition. And then, but really part of the coolest thing, just coming back to like the purpose piece and what we're doing, is like I left right at the COVID time. I just had my first son in 2020. And so it was like building a team. Jason, one of the most impactful things that you've ever said to me was, hey, it doesn't matter what we do or what we accomplish if our families don't know us and love us. If our wives don't see us, if our kids don't know who we are, like everything is pointless. And that was like such a profound, like I don't know, I share that probably once a week with people. I think it's so cool. But really keeping the main thing is like, if we don't have our walk with God right, if we don't have our home life in order, like we're not going to be able to produce and execute at the highest level at work. And so it's been really fun building a business and building a culture around doing things in that order. And at times it's tough and it seems counterintuitive coming from the like work 50 hours a week, do whatever it takes to make it happen. But I think that there's like a protection around that, because I believe we were designed to operate like that, like walk with God, walk with your family, and then, you'll have your provisions that you can pursue in business. And so it's been fun to build and design that and walk that out with each other. And with anything you do, whether it's a regular job or owning your own business, it takes time, and work is hard. I should know who it is. There's that one song where it's like, work sucks. I know. No matter what you're doing, work is work, Yeah, that's it. So no matter what you do, like work sucks. I'd rather be deer hunting anytime. But there is, it's just a matter of sticking with things. And when we know we're building something great and we're building a company, one, to pursue greater goals, that the business we're building now, it's not just to like, let's build a business to make money, but let's build a business to create impact. Let's build a business so we can have resources to pour into future entrepreneurs who have great ideas that can make the world a better place. Let's build a business so we have resources to create a family with generational blessings. Let's build a business to create a culture to show people like true love and true kingdom stewardship of resources. And so like it's just so fun to be a part of. And certainly it's challenging and there's growing pains, but it's knowing that we're doing it for something ultimately bigger than ourselves. It's awesome.
That's awesome. I think one of the things that comes to mind as you were sharing that is just, if depending on what your goals are, which a lot of people don't spend any time even thinking about goals. So just by thinking about goals, you're already like ahead of the time. But if you have a vision for your life that's bigger than average, pretty much entrepreneurship is one of the only ways to get there. To be able to do your own thing, own your time, but have the responsibility to own that time, use that responsibility. But for you, that process, would you say that began your entrepreneurial journey back with the Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad? Was that like your eye-opening experience that was possible?
Yep. Yeah, I would certainly say that book was like, I didn't enjoy reading at all. Like, but I got that book and I couldn't put it down. Like,
how old were you?
I think I was 18.
Right.
I remember I was a server at this country club, like waiting tables, and I would go like take bathroom breaks and like bring the book with me and just literally sit on the toilet and read like 5 pages and then be like, all right, I got to go back to work. Like I was hooked. I couldn't set it down. It was so good because I was just excited. Like when I went to college, like I'm like, well, what do I want to get a degree in? I'm like, okay, well, how can I make the most money? And And at that time, it wasn't for the same reasons. At that time, it was like, oh, I saw Bentley and Jay-Z's video. I want one. How do I get it? So I'm like, oh, I'll go into architecture. Like, I'm pretty good at math and this, and like architectures, I think they make good money. That's what I'll do. So that like, so just like knowing that there was like a different way to go after things like business and entrepreneurship. I'm like, that's a path. That's what I want to do. And even when I took my W-2 job, I was very reluctant to do that because I left the window cleaning business to go take this job. And I was like, it was crazy because I didn't pursue the job. It just kind of fell. It was another one of those things that fell in my lap as I was walking along. And I was nervous because I'm like, man, jobs are dumb. I don't want a job. I don't want to become like a boring corporate person. But it was like, okay, this seems right. I guess I'll just go with it. And in that, it was a really good opportunity. And also, the company I was at, Aerotech, was also very entrepreneurial. So I was able to still scratch that itch because I had a lot of responsibility to go build and be an entrepreneur inside structure. And that structure I needed, again, maybe this was like, since I didn't do college, like this gave me some structure to follow and learn of like, okay, here's how I, should conduct myself in business. And here's how you negotiate agreements. And then over time, I'm like, okay, I've got some structure. I've, earned my keep. Now I'm going to go out and build something.
Yeah. So probably early on, and I was similar with Kiyosaki. He's short on exactly how, but really, really good on inspiration and vision for how to live your life at a higher level. But in your case, I mean, everyone's life's a little bit different circumstance. You had some entrepreneurial projects here or there, but didn't go full-time entrepreneur for another 15, 17 years, right?
Right. Yeah, it was, I had the window cleaning business and the multi-level marketing, and then it was W-2 for a while. And I knew that the entrepreneur was still in me, but there wasn't the right opportunity and vehicle. And I think part of it too was strategic and getting my financial house in order. Like, because I was broke, and like entrepreneurship, it takes resources to, and don't get me wrong, you can go raise money and like, now if I know now, or if I knew then what I know now, like you can just go create it all. You don't need money. But part of it was like just getting established of like, okay, I need to pay off whatever debt I had. I need to follow the Dave Ramsey plan and get some money saved up. Let me buy a house. I want to be in a spot where I'm like financially, have financial peace. And so that even helped too. Like when I got married and just building a foundation and having it set up so that when I left work, when I went into full-time entrepreneurship, I had some runway and margin where I wasn't, having to, eat ramen noodles every night and just shoot, try and piece it together as I go. Like I did all right, and I did my best to live conservatively so that like, hey, I can afford to take a pay cut for a few years. I can afford to invest time in building something greater, knowing that it's going to take time, but it will happen. So I think that, the job was a good thing for me to, one, give that structure, but also give me time to build resources so that when I went into entrepreneurship, I wasn't desperate. I could take my time, and also partnering with you, Jason, like in a spot where like, hey, we have some resources. Let's go build this the right way. We're not going to have to rush things. We don't have to try and manipulate stuff. We're just going to walk. Here's our mission, and we're going to take a step forward, just one foot in front of the other, and we're going to build something great. And so I think that's been a really cool experience and process to be a part of. So like as a point like entrepreneurship, if it's something that's in your heart and you feel like it's hardwired in you, and you're in a job today, like you don't have to quit. Like maybe you do if everything lines up, but maybe it's in 5 years, maybe it's in 10 years, maybe it's in 15 years. But the time can still come, and it, hopefully it's as obvious for you as it was for me.
Yeah. I think Kiyosaki actually touches on this in his books, how, as much as it's incredible, the benefits of being an entrepreneur are many. there's a process to that. And it's a legitimate strategy. He says, if you're taking a job, yeah, obviously you want to make some money while you're doing it, but use it to the best of your ability to learn and develop and grow. That's really one of the number one things you should be thinking about with a job. And I thought that made a lot of sense. And even in our case, when I was advocating, what 8 years ago or whatever it was, learning to appreciate the process, like, of character development, because ultimately when we're in business, we're basically leveraging opportunity over our character. Our character times the opportunity is what the outcome is. Because if you have an awesome opportunity and very little character, even if it works for a little while, it's not going to work long term. So developing the disciplines, one of the nice things about those sales positions at an Aerotech or like a recruiting position is they teach you to grind and have that steely resolve, and most people can't hack it. I probably wouldn't hack it. I had to find a different way to add value to people. So yeah, over that 7 years, like, without me even having to think about it, you're becoming a better partner, better person to work with, more skills, and it's just a process and a timing to everything. So no need to, as much in entrepreneurship and goal getters, like, really want to get things done quickly, and it's good to think that way, but also allow it takes time to do anything of value too.
Absolutely. And another thing I think of for those folks that are still in a job, like, often I'll hear people like, oh, I don't like my leader, or the people I work this or that. And in being an entrepreneur, like, sure, you can pick who you do business with, but if you're a leader of a group or a company, sometimes you have to deal with people you don't like. Like, you might hire someone that isn't a good fit, or they're abrasive, or whatever the case is. And being in the corporate culture, like at Aerotech, like, I learned a lot about dealing with conflict. And I had some directors that at first, like, when we first started working together, I'm like, man, we are like, oil and water. Like, I don't think they get me. I don't get them. We're completely opposite the way we think about stuff. But I had to constantly just reprogram, like, okay, clearly they're successful doing it the way they've done. What do I need to learn from them? I don't have to be like them, but I can learn from them and I can respect them. And it was really cool because over the course of a year or 2 or 3 working with some of these folks, like, they became like some of my favorite people to work with or to work for, because they taught me like a lot. I learned so many great things that, hey, this maybe wasn't my preference, but now I see how you do it. And it allowed me to add tools to my toolbox. And so I don't know, I just speak that to folks, that if you don't always see eye to eye with someone, or you don't like the way someone is at your work, like, just reprogram your mind, or like, think about it differently. Instead of thinking about the negatives, be like, hey, how can I learn from this person? How can this person learn from me? How can I build that relationship? So that, like, I also give a lot of credit to, just, I learned so much from so many different people there about leadership and management and dealing with conflicts, so that was a big piece of the puzzle too.
Cool. Well, you touched on a little bit this here, but as we wrap up here, and you think about looking out the next 3, 4, 5 years, what are some of the things that you're most excited about, whether in the business, things that part of the purpose of projects we're working on, or in the family, and just what are you excited about for the future?
Man, there's a lot. It's kind of tough to answer that, because I've been I guess this is a check for me, because I've been so laser focused on just what do we need to get done right now, like, because I know the big picture and the vision I'm going after, but also, like, we're in full on build mode right now, so a lot of my time has been spent like, how do I execute today? And like, I know that more great things are coming, but I try not to get too excited about them, because it's like, just handle my business for today. But I think just continuing to just multiply what we're doing today, like with the partnership that, we built at Gratūs, to take that and multiply it and share it with more people. And even from a serving and ministry standpoint, like, my wife and I serve in a few different capacities, but I like the idea of like, how can we multiply that more? How can we make a bigger impact than what we're making today? And it's not necessarily just about like growing the number, but like growing the impact, whether it's how can we help to mobilize more people to do those things or to take part in those missions. And then, in the business space, how do we help more entrepreneurs? How do we, I just had lunch with a guy yesterday who's he has a full-time sales job right now, but he has like 2 or 3 startup businesses going. And I just had an absolute blast for like 2 hours just brainstorming with him about, hey, what if you did this? What if you did that? And just being able to spend more time helping people really, take their mountain, pun intended, and helping people dream and be creative and see there's so many possibilities. Like we're put on this earth to do so much more than just go to work and pay the bills and, buy groceries and eat and go to sleep. And being able to spend more time dreaming with people and helping people be creative and find alternative solutions to not just alternative investment, but really just an alternative life from, you don't have to live the normal way. Like there's a lot of fun, creative ways to do things. So I would really, to summarize it, most excited about having more time to spend time with people to take their mountain. And that's not just a cliche because I'm on the Take Your Mountain podcast, but truly that's it's who I am. That's why we're in business together. Like that's it. It's what we're doing.
Well, cool. Well, thank you for sharing through your courage to step out and be entrepreneurial. You're putting yourself in a position to help others to do similar things. So your courage is helping as you pursue your mountain or your purpose. That's helping others pursue yours, and it's fun to do it with people of like mind, heart, and spirit. So,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Next week on Take Your Mountain.
So whatever stage that somebody's in, I would just encourage to dream about like what are the talents that you have and what are the things that make you come alive, because those things that are life-giving for you are a blessing to other people.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.